Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers. I'm your host, Harriette Cole, and I am excited about our guest today. You know, we talk about people fulfilling their dreams, and there are so many different dreams that people have. Well, today, I'm going to guess that this is a dream you might not have thought of. Let me tell you, we are going to get ready for a deep dive, literally and figuratively, into the life of a remarkable woman who's showing us all that no dream is out of reach. No dream. Today, we're going to be speaking with certified dive master Corhanda Dawson, affectionately known as HOODA BROWN. From a married occupational therapist to a divorced mother of two, exploring the wildest dreams and the depths of every ocean, HOODA BROWN found her way to scuba diving as she searched for a source of healing. Guided by her mantra, therapeutic use of self, HOODA's journey is a one-of-a-kind example of all that lies ahead once you break barriers and embrace change. As HOODA continued to explore more of the world and the ocean, she earned advanced certifications in wreck, cave, deep, ice, and dry suit diving. She's going to tell us what that is. I don't really know what that means. She even attained the Guinness World Record for fastest completion of scuba dives on all 7 continents. Yep, you heard it. She serves as a citizen scientist through Diving with a Purpose, allowing her to champion global waters and advocate for ocean conservation. Her passion and natural connection to the ocean have encouraged her to make the ocean's health more relatable to people who look like her. Her goal, as she says, is to cultivate a diverse army of advocates to safeguard our planet's lifeblood. Well, from the Fairgrounds pool in Memphis, Tennessee, to the depths of the world's oceans, HOODA BROWN's story is one of courage, discovery, and representation. So join me now in welcoming Corhanda HOODA BROWN Dawson.
Thank you so much, Harriet, for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. You know, my friend Pam Pickens, who is a world traveler and athlete, told me about you. She says, you talk about a dream leaper. You need to talk to her. At 7 continents, scuba diving across 7 continents. I mean, that is, most people have not been to more than one continent, and you've been to all of them. So that obviously was a huge benchmark to reach. But I want to start earlier. Because many people who tune into Dreamleapers are in transition, are wishing and hoping that, you know, there's something on their heart that they want to do, that they want to fulfill. And sometimes fear can get in the way, responsibility can get in the way. You had a big life pivot that made it so that you thought differently about the choices in your life. What happened?
Well, so I was running a business, married, living the idea of what Black success looks like. You know, it kind of was an out-of-body experience, so much how successful we were at such a young age, like 23, 24 years old. I had, 45 employees at the time. And so being from a 2-parent household where mom and daddy and kids was the way, it was like exampled as this is what success looks like. It was very hard to come to the conclusion that I needed to be divorced. And after that, you lose sets of friends. And so the married people no longer invite you to their events. And then your single girlfriends, you've been disconnected because you were not doing single girlfriend things. And so I felt like, in a bit of a trap. I didn't have ways in which I could express myself. I was dealing with the business, now dealing with children by myself in a single mother capacity. I just needed some change. And so I just literally went to Groupon and I was like, okay, I need to learn 5 new things, because if I learn some new stuff, that's going to give me an opportunity to have new conversations, new people to talk to, just other ways. And I think it was incremental successes that, have kind of helped me get out of that dark space. And I took 5 lessons. I took an intro to scuba class. I took a salsa dancing class, a belly dance class, a golf lesson, and tennis lessons. And to this day, I still do all 5 things. But of course, scuba took a hold and has been transformative in my life.
So before you go into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the tender times, because many people go through this, the smashing of whatever the dream was, especially
Mhm.
if you have this sense of what family is going to be and it doesn't work out.
Mhm.
And, there's a grieving process that happens,
Mhm.
and there's
Mhm. Mhm.
also, I'm sure, a tremendous amount of fear because you say you have children. How are you going to be able to get from where you are to a place that will feel stable and then healthy? Uh, in the tender moments, what kept you going?
So my daughters, I'm a mother of two. I have a 25-year-old and a 21-year-old. And at the end of every day, I knew I was always going to be the example. They weren't going to do what I did. I mean, do what I said, they're going to do what I did. And so for me, I was driven by one, the idea of what I thought I wanted in the beginning, and now having to deal with the reality of this life, like this new life where my dreams are going to be altered. And so in those tender moments, it was the girls, and wanting them to have the full life that I had, but it was going to be different because mom and daddy were there with me and my brothers, but now it's just primarily going to be me. And how did I want to define quality time? Because my parents were very involved in our lives, and for me, I by myself, I was like, okay, how do I example what that primary unit is, mom and daddy and kids, but also make sure they have the right amount of esteem, make sure they're fearless, make sure they're, all of those things. And so in that quiet moment, it really was, even before scuba diving, it was the outdoor activities. So camping with the girls and getting them on a mountain, even to have them trust themselves to go down a mountain on a piece of fiberglass. And so one of my greatest partners in raising my children was outdoors. It's been an
Oh,
incredible. So, oh yeah, like there are some things that children can't even test in these concrete jungles and these landlocked places like Memphis, Tennessee, where I'm from. And so getting your kids outside to learn gravity and fire and water and heat and all of the things that they learn by playing is just, it was, I think, transformative for all of us because there was this new vision of what family could be. Yeah, I was going to arrive at the vacation plot. It's just me and my daughters. Yes, I was going to arrive at the campground by me and myself, but the girls were the strength. They were the light. They were the reason to not wallow in the disappointment of what had happened and say, okay, I want a new reality and I want something much better than even I had envisioned before.
did you grow up doing outdoor things? Were your parents
Yeah.
into that? Oh,
Yeah, they were. My daddy, we're in the South. And so daddy back in the 80s would put us in fishing rodeos. And there were very, very few Black children in fishing rodeos back in the 80s, right? And daddy, I used to, the fat earthworms, I put those jokers on the hook and would try to win. And so my mom worked at a grocery store, and she had a boss that would always talk about camping. And mama said, you know what, that sounds fun. I take my family camping. And that grew to like 140 friends and family members, like 140 of us on campgrounds. And so, they would and my mom and dad would always play. They weren't just, like, let me take them out and let them do, like, we had potato sack races. My mom and dad would be in a potato sack race, and they would have, no, seriously, all the other, my mama, she was still the potato sack race champion for the 60-year-olds until this day. Like, so they stopped right around the 60 and 70, they stopped. Yeah, but mama she was up in that thing. She was there. Daddy was there. It was like an extension of family. And it's just like the greatest gift for me was just to be outside and you see your parents play and not so serious and not so, do what I say and go over there and be quiet.
I love that. And I also love when we break stereotypes on this show. So
Mm-hmm.
many people think that Black families do not do physical activity.
Mm-hmm.
Many people
Right.
think that we just home, couch potatoes, whatever it is. Y'all were out. You were
We were
out
out.
and enjoying nature. And as you say, letting nature be your partner, which is a really
Mm-hmm.
powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when and I love also the notion that your girls are what kept you going. I understand
Oh,
that because when you have children, I mean, you live for them. You live to make sure that their lives can be as great as possible. And that's not always easy.
no, Not at all. Because of most people that are reeling from divorce, there's a bit of financial upheaval from that. There are implications throughout your whole ethos. So whether it's finances, sometimes it's physical. Some people are, end up in depression. Sometimes they're, just all kinds of stuff that come from disappointment, because it's like a seed. When you're disappointed, it can take tentacles, like get rooted in you, and you just have to kind of fight that temptation. So the girls kept the light, because I knew I had to example, like they were going to do what I did, and that was something that said, hey, you got to get up, go learn from me, we got to do something else. So that didn't work, let's do something else.
I love that. And then your decision to pick 5 things to do, like, where'd that come from?
I don't know. I still don't know. I don't know. I just said, I need to learn 5 new things, because I would assume that I'm not going to like some of them, right? And so I didn't know what I would like, what I wouldn't like. A friend of mine had mentioned scuba diving. His name is Steve Day. He went to college with me, and he was working volunteer for the Alameda County Fire Department. And he was doing scuba rescues. So he was bringing back people's people in black water. And I thought that was fascinating. I'm like, you're, looking for dead bodies in water that you can't see other human beings. And I was like, take a scuba lesson. And so he was kind of like the first person to even talk to me about scuba diving. And so I don't know why.
Hold on for 1 second, just for folks listening like me. I do swim. I grew up swimming. I would not have listened to that story and say, oh, therefore I want to do that, because that's what he's doing. Like, your brain is definitely working on a different wavelength. I love it, though. I love it.
I've been told that since I was a child that you're a little bit different, right? So I know most people wouldn't hear that and go like, I need to go do that. But I thought to myself, that is really brave. And I'm in healthcare. So I'm thinking, what greater gift to give a family resolve than to bring back their family members, so they know what happened and don't know that. Yeah. So I just thought that was such a brave thing. And I wasn't going in it for that reason, but it just piqued my interest. I was like, wow, that's awesome.
And so where is scuba diving in Memphis?
Well, there is no scuba diving in Memphis, Tennessee. We are landlocked. The closest ocean is about 7.
I know the map.
I know, girl, 7 hours away. And so there's a dive shop, Poplar and Yates. And so that's where I took an intro to scuba lesson from. And so they have a 15-foot pool. So you can get all of your basics pool course done there, and then you'll have to go to open water somewhere else. So I went to Metropolis, Illinois, the home of Superman, which is the closest rock quarry that I could dive in, and I got my open water certification there through the dive shop.
How long does that take to get the open water certification?
So you can go to any island in the Caribbean and get an open water certification in a weekend. Because I was a working mom, and of course, dealing with all the stuff I was dealing with, I did it in 4 weekends. So I had to break it up. So I did every Saturday, I would go and take different parts of the coursework to get certified. And so
where was it?
The dive shop at Poplar.
Where did you go for the open water?
Metropolis, Illinois.
Yeah. So stateside, because you just mentioned a moment, a lot of people go to the Caribbean, go and do it.
Right. No, stateside. And so I could have gone to either Metropolis, Illinois, or Birmingham, Alabama. There's another rock quarry there. And so those rock quarries and lakes are technically open water. So you can get your open water certification in those places.
That's fantastic. Hey guys, are you as fascinated as I am? I bet you are. You are connected right now to Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole, and we are talking with HOODA Brown. She is a scuba diver. She's won a Guinness Book of World Records record for going to all 7 continents in record time to dive. She's a fascinating woman who is telling us her story right now. So HOODA, you get your certification. I mean, again, there's so many things. I hope people are listening, because the what do you call it? The obstacles are very clear. You are in a landlocked state and you decide you're going to go scuba diving and you're going to become a scuba diver. a lot of people would give up even before they got started because,
Correct.
well, how I can't do this where I live. This is just
Mm-mm.
a dream that's like it has to be somebody else's dream. But you
Mm-hmm.
didn't do that. You said, I'm going to figure it out. Maybe people can do it in a weekend if they don't have responsibilities. You did it in 4 because you do. Did you ever have a time on this journey where you're like, I should just give up? This is too much.
Day one. So when I went to get my open water certification, I was in this rock quarry that was had a thermocline of about 50 feet, which means that the temperature drops significantly after 40 feet because light can't penetrate the water. And so I go to, so I've spent this money. I'm invested in this thing. I've gone to 3 courses. This is my open water certification weekend. I'm stoked. I'm the only female and I'm there and it sucks. And it is, you can't see. There are a lot of divers in the water. So they're kicking up the silt. And so it was very cold. And I was like, I just spent all this time for this. And I was like, oh no, I don't know. So of course I went ahead because I'm a competitive person. I went ahead and finished that weekend, but I put scuba diving down for like a year because I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know if this is for me. I don't know. Right. And it took until the next spring when I went to Cabo with the girls for spring break. I took them to spring break and I got in the ocean. And then so it had been a year. And so I had to take like a little refresher course and I still knew the skills and I knew my thing. But when I hit that ocean, that was a game changer. Oh,
What happened?
So in the ocean for the first time, because I think many of us, as we're reeling from disappointment of divorce or whatever, you still have this almost ticker taper in your head. So you may be at work or you may be dealing with your children, but there's still like this language almost of, that thump of this happened and that happened. And why did this happen? And why did I do that? And in the ocean, when I was there for the first time, I can no longer hear that, right? I became keenly aware of my own breaths, my depth, all of the amazingly beautiful things that I saw that were all alive. And it was a cerebral moment for me. The world and its challenges quieted down.
Mm. And what were you seeing as you were getting still on the inside? And, there's a whole world underwater.
Correct. And so what I saw was this it was like a liquid art gallery in the sense that there were colors that I had never seen before. Like some of the colors that you could see underwater are not in our Pantone. Like they're not on the sheets as far as colors. And so the vivid nature, the orange, they weren't quite orange and they weren't quite purple and they weren't like, it's just the color palette alone, as well as the organic nature of what's in the ocean. So there are no squares, rectangles, no building blocks of man, none of the things that we use to build things. Everything is mounds and it's fluid and everything has motion and texture and color. And so there's soft things, hard things that made it like rocks. And it just makes this beautiful tapestry, this beautiful landscape that if you are still enough, you even see smaller things within things.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's taking us in. I one of the things that I do is teach public speaking, and I tell people, paint a picture with your words. Well, you just did that so beautifully. I've never gone scuba diving. I feel like I was there looking with you. These seas.
Oh, it was beautiful. And so the fact that everything's alive too is. And so even though like a coral reef it doesn't have eyes, it feels your presence. And so sometimes it may close, right? So it knew you were there. It knows that you're there. And so even though it's not that type of human kind of interaction, it's still a constant interaction with all things alive. And so in that space, you can't help but feel alive because you do feel some trepidation and some anxiety. And there are big animals in the water, right? And they're everywhere. And so you see octopus that are changing. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And so it ended up turning off the stuff that was outside of me. I had to be completely present and making sure that I was safe, making sure that I was aware, keenly aware of everything that was going on.
Okay, I want to address fear because you mentioned, I mean, being in a space with animals of whatever size, the little
Mhm.
ones you can be afraid of, uh, these huge beings that are flowing through the water. How did you reconcile fear within yourself as it came up?
So I think the best way I can describe what that was for me personally, my mama and them we were, in their efforts to expose us to some things, like new things, right? Whenever we were in a new environment, they would always say, listen, don't go in here and touch nothing. Leave and mind your own business and you will be fine, right? So that's kind of how in the approach that I took to the ocean, like go down there, leave everything alone, don't touch nothing and mind your own business, right? And so the calm of not wanting to interact necessarily with the ocean allows it to come because it is a diver's truth. The more calm you are, the closer the animals are. So when you're moving around calmly, everything is you don't have to go chasing anything. It all comes to you. Like I can go through a school of fish and they barely separate, right? But if you're thrashing around and flashing around and got all that anxious energy, they can feel it and they're going to scat and you're not going to see anything, right? And that just comes with familiarity and just confidence, right? But it was just that old school teaching of don't go in there acting a fool and be calm and everything's going to be fine.
Did you ever encounter a being that challenged you where you really felt afraid?
Never, still. I've tapped a shark on the nose, you know what I mean, and wasn't afraid necessarily because once you understand the behavior of certain animals, then you know that one, they ain't studying you because you're not food. Even though there are accidents, and most of the time people who get bit by sharks are on some kind of paddleboard or surfboard, and you look like a seal from an animal that has eyes on the side of its head, right? So you're thrashing around, you look like a sick seal or whatever. So, understanding the behavior of animals, I never was really fearful. The only time I've ever been anxious in the water is when I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be, like not paying attention to my depth. And you look up and you're 167 feet and recreational diving stops at 135 feet. And then
Uh-oh.
you're like, hey, yo, whoa.
And why is 135 feet the cutoff? Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, so the insurance companies have decided that the incidence of accidents that happen with scuba diving happen below 135 feet. And so that's just the industry standard. So commercial diving starts at 135 feet and your insurance coverage stops. So, and that's for most scuba divers. You can buy the additional insurance if you would like to, but that's just the safe space where people don't tend to have accidents.
Understood. I'm glad you talked about that because, there's so many things that people are afraid of, primarily because they don't know. And
Yeah.
then, as we move into the summer season and we always hear stories of, there's sharks in the water and what does that mean? And you better not go in.
Mhm.
There's always more information that you need, like what you just described. There's
Mhm.
reason that
Mhm.
people are not just attacked by sharks.
No.
Jaws is not real.
Yeah, well, especially with the great whites, because they're not in New England or anywhere close to America at all. Actually, great whites they have to be really deep water, really cold water. So you're talking about Australia and South Africa. So the probability of being attacked by a shark is just, you'd be in an accident, a car accident, or 1,000 other things before you'd be technically attacked by a shark on a day that you went to a beach.
I hope people hear that because, because there's just a lot of fear about things that people don't know, and then they place a certain value on it, and you're describing something very, very different. We are living in a time when our environment is under siege,
Yes.
when there's a tremendous lack of understanding of what the
Mm-hmm.
environment is and what it means, and, how and why we should treasure our
Mm-hmm.
environment, and so you're literally immersing yourself in the environment.
Yes, and the only reason that I went to So for me, becoming the first African-American female to dive every ocean in the world was more than a privilege, right? That was the goal and that was the thing. The Guinness stuff was just kind of a side piece, if you will, just for me to be able to attract young folks. You know, they like the floss and the gloss. And so you've got to have something to exchange. And so, you know, being able to say, you know, well, I'm a Guinness World Record holder, then their ears and their eyes, they're not paying attention, right? And so for me, conserving the ocean is an existential threat to humanity. Most people, when you ask, if I even ask you, say, Harriet, where does the majority of our oxygen come from? Most people will say trees, and that is not the case. 72% of the oxygen that you and I breathe is from the photoplankton and that green algae that's in the ocean. Without the ocean, this is our lifeline. Like, we would not be able to breathe oxygen. So this is a really, really important thing that I feel like most people just don't understand, that our relation to the ocean, the fact that, you know, 3/4 of the world's population lives within 100 miles of the ocean, which says that those waterways, the food source, everything about being on the water is, you know, quintessential to humanity, other than the fact that also 3/4 of the earth is on water. So the waterways, it's far more important than I think that it gets the attention. And there are plenty of people working on it. But from my perspective, I think that people who are working on it right now may be from more privileged circumstances. And if you're from your base of knowledge is from privilege and you're working on a problem, right? Let's get some of these folks that may be from less privileged circumstances who may understand depravity better. And those individuals look at this problem because they may say, you know what, we need to do it this way. We need to do ocean conservation this way. And so that's what I want to inspire. It's just the next generation of ocean conservationists and marine biologists and scuba divers, because, you know, divers are very important with collecting information, because the work that we do with Diving with a Purpose with NOAA, the National Atmospheric and Oceanic Society, we're just doing roving surveys where every year we go to the same place and we're reporting what we see. And that way we can help give them an idea, because the ocean is a huge place, what's happening in these small plots of ocean.
Hey guys, this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. We are having the honor right now of talking with HOODA Brown about the planet, about the oceans, about her incredible career and her bringing awareness, especially to young people, about just what it means to live on this planet. So we're really excited to have her here. HOODA, when we talking about diving with a purpose. So I met someone who I'm going to assume that you know, and we're going to have her on the show very soon again, Tara Roberts. And she's the first person who told me about diving with a purpose and the work that is done. So I'd love for you to, first of all, just the fact that I know two Black women, two dynamic women who are divers, who've been diving all around the world. That is amazing.
Right.
And I've known Tara since she first started working, because she worked at magazine when I was there many moons ago. Tell us about Diving with a Purpose, what it is and what the intention of that organization is for folks.
So Diving with a Purpose has two different divisions. So Tara is on the archaeological side that does, they're looking at archaeological research, slave ships, etc. I am on the care side, which is the collective approach to restoring ecosystems. So they're kind of looking at the archaeological and some of the past. I'm on the side that looks at our future and looking at how we can restore, because our goal is to try to restore at least 2% of the coral in the Mesoamerican Reef, which is the second largest barrier reef to the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. So we are looking at roving surveys and just the health of the ocean. So they're the archaeological side, we're the citizen science side.
I didn't even know that it was that full of an effort. And so doing this work obviously is very serious, because it's documenting history on the archaeological side and preserving the
Mhm.
world on the other side, you mentioned wanting to develop the next generation of conservationists and folks who are really paying attention to
Mhm.
environment. How are you doing that? Either with Diving with a Purpose or on your own? How do you reach young people who are interested? And what are you doing to get them to, you know, begin that journey?
I've just started. So, after I did, but like I said, the Guinness was secondary. The first thing for me last year, because Harriet, I've been to all 7 continents and all 5 oceans twice in the
Wow.
last 320 days, right?
Oh,
Twice, 2 times, right? Because Guinness, when I shared information with you, um, I was going for getting the Guinness back because someone else came and beat me in December. And there was an opportunity to go back to Antarctica, which is the most expensive piece of it. And I was like, okay, let me go ahead and get this done again. So I ended up doing all of it twice. So that was November, and then I just did it again twice. So for me, now I'm just starting to think about exactly how I want to execute because as a lifeguard at the fairground pool as a teenager, before I can ever get somebody in the ocean, I've got to get them comfortable in the water. So,
mhm,
advocacy for all of the city pools that have been closed over the years, like, they're almost gone. Like unless you have a private pool or a country club, or, there are some place, a couple of pools still here left in Memphis, but we had many at the time. And so just getting the kids back in the water and comfortable with the water is the first step, right? And
right.
so looking at advocacy with folks being able to just swim, because the stigma of drowning and sharks and a lot of things, keep people uninterested in the ocean. And so I think that the first layer would be that. But I'm
Well,
writing my plan.
and I'm glad you mentioned that because unfortunately,
Hmm.
and it's not just Black kids, but a lot of Black kids cannot swim. A lot
Hmm.
of people who do not live near the water cannot
Correct.
swim. But even
Correct.
but even people who do, like my husband is from Jamaica. He grew up in Jamaica. He did not learn how to swim until he came to America.
Oh,
A lot of
wow.
people, a lot of kids, he explained, they get in the water. A whole lot of kids get in the water, but they're right at the water's edge and they don't, they can
Hmm.
kind of mess around in the water, but they don't know how to
Hmm.
swim.
Right.
I spoke to an Olympian, Cullen. His last name is Cullen.
Hmm.
Remember his first name right now, but the reason he became an Olympic swimmer is because he almost drowned. And so
Mm.
he said, "Oh no, I'm not going to drown. I need to learn how to swim."
Mm.
And that drive pushed him to become a swimmer, a competitive swimmer, and he ended
Oh,
up becoming
wow.
an Olympian. And which kind of reminds me of you because you're like, oh, I'm gonna overcome this thing. But to teach, I think it's very smart. Your notion. Let me get the young people. Cullen Jones is his name. Cullen
Helen
Jones.
Jones.
And it's very smart to get them comfortable in the water, to feel safe
Hmm.
and to explore. Wow, what I feel, in between my toes, this sand, it's okay.
Yes.
This
Yes.
little fish, nipping at my ankles, it's okay. Those
Hmm.
to build a relationship is lovely, and I'm
It,
so glad that you're doing that.
like if I think just like it was for me, right? Scuba diving was this thing, but once I got in the ocean, I made the connection. And so I can't get kids on buses to bus them down to the panhandle of Florida or Alabama or the closest ocean to me, which would be Pensacola, without them knowing to swim, right? And so Diving with a Purpose also has another um, youth portion of it that is kind of based in Nashville that Mr. Ken has been doing for the last 15 years, where he is getting teenagers, 13, 14, 15 years old, registered to scuba dive. And so, whatever I've gone there before to help him out with that. And so there are vehicles already, but home is home, and I need kids that are close to me doing and getting in that water, and at least not being able to drown. Like, just float, baby. If all you can do is float, that's fine by me. But you need to be able to save yourself if the creek rises, my grandma used to say.
And floating requires fearlessness.
Correct. Correct. Because I've taught indirectly about 10 to 12 of my family members at family reunions to swim, just by, and that's why I also want to try to get as many Black instructors, because it's about trust, right? And so Auntie HOODA is having you float on your back. You actually can relax and learn to float. If there's a stranger telling you, well, baby, now, let's get you on your back. There's water going to come in your ears. Don't be afraid of that. It's a natural response.
Of that.
Correct. And so, I think the familiarity of looking at somebody who is not going to let you drown matters when it comes to people overcoming the fear of doing like swimming or doing anything really. Like, that's why I think it's important to have all of us in all of these various spaces, snowboarding, anything that's outside of the norm. When you have representation, you have somebody that looks like you, it matters to you, because then you make the connect. Like, if they can do it, I can do it. When it's something foreign already that you have a fear of, then you're just not as likely to make that connection.
Mm-hmm. I watched an interview that you did some time ago where you were talking about, on the one hand, going to all these 7 continents and really building your comfort and
Mm-hmm.
also your experience had been somewhat lonely. You were often by yourself and
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
maybe not with people who look like you, people who shared the same interest in scuba,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe not other kinds of interests.
Mm-hmm.
And can you talk about the journey? Because honestly, it sounded very much like a corporate America journey, although it's a water journey where you are the only one, with
Right.
many
Right.
experience
Right.
until you kind of found your tribe. Can you share
Right.
the story?
So, for especially the early years, 2012, 2013, 14, when I was just really, scuba dive was taking hold of me. Um, it was, I was solo, and I would arrive on these boats, and there would be what I would call the interview, because everyone wanted to kind of know, like, so, why are you here? And more, in a short way of saying it. They're like, hey, so what do you do? Now you live where, and you've been where, and there was always this interview session, if you will. And early on, it used to kind of annoy me, but then over time, when I had solid answers, because at the time, remember, I was still kind of settling myself, settling my emotions, and settling, purpose and in these new ways. And so in about, maybe 2 years or so, I would arrive on those boats, and the more I dive, the more confident I became. And so it's like, okay, now where are you from? I'd answer all the short answers. And then it kind of became a source of pride, because they like, oh, so where have you dived? And I'm like, I've dove all over. Oh, all over where? Have you dived here? Have you dived there? Yeah, like a couple of times. This is the dive shop you should go to. This, go talk to Mr. Joe. Go talk to. They're like, oh, okay. Then of course the questions would stop. So, it's just like with anything, incremental success is where you find confidence. And that's where I would, tell anybody who's had an upheaval of their lives, go do some new things. And the successes that come with learning something new, and the confidence that comes with it, will have you being able to go solo for the last 320 days, to every ocean, to every continent, by yourself, confidently open to whatever people were willing to exchange with you, because you learn so much just by going.
I really hope people are listening closely to what you just said. Seriously, I'm very serious, because look, I'll give you an example. There was a woman when I was growing up whose husband left,
Uh-huh.
and she was so devastated for exactly the reasons that you described. We
Mhm.
grew up in this kind of white picket fence, Black
Mhm.
community, so it was kind of
Right.
new back
Mhm.
then. to exist, and her world crumbled, and she never recovered. She had a broken heart, and she was unable to heal her heart. And we watched her get sick and die.
Yeah. Harriet,
And
I've seen it. I've seen it. Like I have seen it. And I didn't mean to interrupt, but I had to. My spirit kind of jumped out because I know there was this lady, Miss Ann, my mom's friend, who had the same kind of thing, but just like a nervous breakdown. And
Mhm.
unbeknownst to her, and I don't think I've ever said it out loud, but I remembered her, and I remembered thinking that this man is going to make my nerves bad, and I'm going to end up on Xanax and Prozac if I don't make a change. And he's already shown himself to be a fool. Somebody got to take care of these girls. Someone
Yes.
has to take care of our children. And so, remembering that I've seen people get stuck in disappointment and die, like die in their spirit, was something I just wasn't going to have happen. And so even back to your early question of the why, it was that too, like, so the girls were part of it, but the unwillingness to be broken forever
Yes.
was, a part of my reason to go learn some new stuff. Like, I can't be this way. This is not me.
And the reason I'm driving this point home, you made it earlier, but I think it is pivotal. It's so important. And
Hmm.
and anybody out there who is tuned in now, who may be in that space, I hope you are hearing what Huda is
Hmm.
saying. It is
Yeah.
possible. If it may not feel like it's possible now, but she is living proof that it is
Hmm.
possible. You can close a door and another one will open. You
Hmm.
can find joy. You can find peace. You can find happiness and
Hmm.
good
Hmm.
if you have the courage to walk away from something that is unhealthy.
That's correct. And it takes courage. And I did not have it all figured out. And I didn't know what to do. I just knew I needed to do something. I had to
Yes.
do something else, like what I was unhappy. I just I cannot stress enough. I was unhappy. I was disappointed. And so it's like, okay, let me feed my brain another energy. And you could not have told me, Harriet, 12 years ago that me going on Groupon would mean that I would set Black history. You could not have told me that, right? No one could have told me that. But that's exactly what happened. And so for anyone, I would say that is having some type of upheaval and you're disappointed or something has fallen apart, to live on this earth means that you're going to have a time where you are disappointed. I don't care who it is. Every one of us, every single one of us has had a moment where you thought one thing was going to happen and something else happened and you are not happy about it. But we just cannot live in those spaces. And I would only suggest to anyone that attempting to do something new or learning something new does give your brain another place to dwell. And I just think that is the building block to a new something.
No, that's beautiful and so profoundly important for people to understand. And I think
Mhm.
having examples like yours of what a transformation can look like when you
Right,
better yourself. So what
right.
about your girls? Let me remind folks that this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. We are near the end of this very powerful conversation with HOODA BROWN, who has dived in every ocean in the world,
Uh-huh. Every
all
continent,
every continent, right, every
every
continent.
continent, every ocean.
And to fathom that, that's quite an amazing accomplishment, and not once, but twice.
In the
Not
last 320 days.
I mean, come on now. That's and so that's also setting goals for yourself and, you said you're competitive. Being competitive with yourself is kind of fun.
Correct.
But I wanna ask you about your girls. What do
Mhm.
you think they have learned? How have they benefited from the choices that you've made?
So both of my girls are scuba divers. Both of my girls are snowboarders. So, we did this together. And so when I, this last Guinness run, my final dive was in Catalina Island, Los Angeles. The girls came out and they made that dive with me. So to cross, now I don't want to cry now, but to cross the finish line with my babies who were there
All right.
through all of it, from, the days when I cried, the days when I was not happy, to cross the line with them, it just, it was just it was such a full circle moment for my family. And so, the exposure that I've been able to share with them, the family time. And so the times diving, the times snowboarding, the outdoor times that that we've spent in this newly defined family time, right? I think it has given them the ability to move this amount of esteem forward. And what I mean by that, I think the most profound thing that I could have done as a mother was to raise big mamas. My mama is the big mama of her generation. I'm the big mama of my generation. My daughters are going to be the big mama of their generation. And knowing that the creation of moments in which we can connect and we can get together are some of the most valuable time that we could ever spend together. So I think that having my mom and them taking us on these camping trips, mom and dad is still going on our camping trips. My children now are having camping trips of their friends, right? And that being, that's the most revolutionary thing that I could have ever done, was to example what it is to be a big mama, in the sense that, somebody has to get us together. Somebody has to be willing to do the things, carry the stuff, carry the equipment, cook the food, do all of the things that give us all moments that we can kind of let our hair down and truly connect.
And your work is in health and mental health, correct?
No, occupational therapy. So it's physical, it's
So I just, in the few minutes that we have left, I'd just like you to talk about what you see as some of the challenges that people are facing right now, health-wise, and what advice you might give for self-care.
Yeah, so chronic disease is killing us. It is our day-to-day choices are making it very tough to be health, and health is the only wealth that matters. And so talking about the mental health component of what scuba diving had become for me, this became my outlet. So this was the place where, I'm giving to my patients, I'm giving to my kids. This was the place that I had that was uniquely mine, that I could go and recharge my battery. Every one of us, every time we get on a plane, the flight attendant is going to tell you to put on your oxygen first before assisting others. So it was incredibly important to me to make sure that when I needed a break and I needed to go to the ocean and quiet all that noise down, that I could go and do that effectively. Because if I am on E, I was not going to be any good for my patients, employees, or my children. So only when I took the time and prioritized getting what I needed, getting into my space, some place that recharged my battery, could I come back and be like, okay, everybody, let's get it popping. Let's get it done. And not prioritizing whatever it is, because it doesn't have to be something so extreme as scuba diving. Whatever it is, knitting, pottery, whatever, art, whatever it is that people find settling and brings them balance, you have got to take healthy doses of that as often as you can, because you're no good to anyone. No one, not even yourself, if you don't give yourself what you need, and only you know what you need.
What do you give yourself every day? What do you do for HOODA every day?
Eat well. Choose to eat well.
And what does that look like? What would eating well look like?
So I make sure that I am eating like vegetables and fish just about every day, because the ocean is a clean space, right? And not eating farm raised things, because it's the processed sugar and bread and all of that is problematic for me, because there's been a time that I've been unhealthy as well. After I had both of the girls, I weighed 65 pounds more than I weigh now. So I understand how important health is. And of course, watching chronic disease in my day-to-day business, that I don't want that pie and that cake, because that sugar is a monster, and cancer is even a greater monster. So I just try to do the thing that I can do, which is eat in the affirmative, like know that what I am taking in is going to be to my benefit, not my detriment.
Beautiful. When's the next dive?
Oh, I don't know. I'm broke.
So you gotta,
every
you need to manifest more abundance, and then the next dive is on the way, right?
Correct. So I've got to do some work. I got to do a little work first, and because it's the last time that I went around the world again, it was kind of unexpected. I had a 2-week notice, and I was off from work for a month. So broke in the sense that right now I need to work, but last weekend my latest dive was a garbage cleanup project that we did in the Florida Keys to go clean up the Florida Keys. And so, it'll probably be something like that, something that is, recreational diving for me. It'll have to take precedence. So it'll be something that is a call to action or a call to purpose.
Excellent. HOODA Brown, thank you. Thank you for all that you do, for sharing your story. You are so inspiring. Exactly what we needed today. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Harriette. I appreciate you.
And thank all of you for tuning in. I told you this was going to be a great one. Check out HOODA Brown. Just follow her. She's doing some amazing things. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.